I'm Mike Patty with Cinesamples and Hollywood Scoring, and this is the start of sort of a new video series that we're doing. It's kind of a composer's workshop, and in this first few videos we're interviewing some of our friends in the music scoring community in Los Angeles. And in this video we're interviewing our friend Amy Tatum, who plays the flute. And thanks, Amy, for doing this crazy thing.
Thanks for having me here.
How long have you been playing the flute? That's
a stupid question. It's not a stupid question. I get it all the time. Gosh, I guess somewhere around like 22 years.
Okay.
Something like that.
And how long have you been playing in LA, in sort of the professional scene?
I've been in LA. This is my 10th year, so it's my big anniversary.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Amy, why don't we start off with some like basic orchestration 101 kind of questions.
Okay.
What is the range of the flute?
Yeah, generally our lowest note is B, below the staff. There are some flutes that don't go down to the low B, that just have a C foot instead of a B foot. But It's most common now for flutes to have the B foot.
So all right, so we can write a low B. And
yeah, you're pretty safe writing a low B. It's sometimes a good idea to have an alternate part, like an alternate note, just, whether it's an octave or another note in the chord or something like that.
Okay.
Sometimes that's a good idea, but usually, especially in studio playing, the players are going to have a low B foot. So then it goes.
So what is that? What's the low B?
What does it sound like?
Yeah.
That's your low B. It goes all the way up to basically C, 2 octaves above the staff.
Okay.
And it can go higher.
Okay.
But things get a little bit sketchy up there in terms of pitch and control.
I see. All right, you got the range, but then how are the dynamics? Is it consistent throughout the instrument? Can you talk a little bit about that?
We try as hard as we can to make it consistent, but there are some things to kind of fight against, some restrictions. In the low register of the flute, it doesn't. It's just a very kind of like mellow, open sound. It doesn't have a lot of power, so it's not going to travel and project a lot. So, triple fortes in the low register, when you really want it to come through the texture, is probably not going to happen.
Okay, so in a full orchestra scenario, stay away from there.
Exactly.
Have you ever had anything that was written down there?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
We just give it all we can.
And you just act professional and not roll your eyes?
Never rolling of the eyes. And then the opposite is true in the high register. So the high register is very piercing. It really travels. So if a composer really wants a lot of punch, that's a good place to write. But it is, like I said, very piercing. So a triple P on a high C, 2 octaves above the staff, especially in unison with another player, with another flutist, or just any instrument, is going to be really difficult.
Okay.
There's less control of the pitch and just the timbre.
Right.
It's just very cutting.
Okay. So general, the higher you go, the louder it is.
Yes.
Okay. So you got the full range, and what's sort of the most comfortable range? Is it that upper range is...
Well, for me in particular, I love like G above the staff to, maybe a G above that.
Oh, okay.
It's not too shrill, it's not strident, it's still got some warmth, but it is much easier to project than in the low register. Again, it just depends on the texture that you're playing in.
I see. Okay, so like that's the kind of line that would cut through in an orchestration.
Yeah, and even higher will cut through too, but it becomes a little bit more difficult to play. The higher you go, also the trickier the fingerings become. There are more, it's just a little bit clunkier. So playing really fast technical things in the high register, it's just not going to be as fluid as it is in other registers.
I see. All right, so what are some of the most common things, in traditional kind of film score that you see that, in the sessions? What's the most common type of thing that you see?
Type of music or?
Type of parts that you see. Like, do you play a lot of scalar stuff? Do you play, or just is it a variety?
It is. I mean, I think that's one of the great things about the flute. It's a very agile instrument. We can kind of get all over the place and play very fast technical things, but it's also, you know, a very lovely legato solo voice. So you kind of get a little bit of all of it.
Cool. All right, so back to the orchestration stuff. This is the regular flute, and this is what you'd play mostly. Why don't we move on to, you have an alto flute here.
I do.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So the alto flute is a little bit lower.
It is. It's in G.
All right.
So it's a fourth below the regular C flute. It's just got a lower, a little bit huskier kind of, yeah. So it's, you know, you can hear some air and movement in the sound.
All right. Now, how well does this instrument cut through in a... Not so well, okay.
Yeah, sadly, less so than, you know, the flute or the piccolo. So it's really great for adding color, and as a solo voice, it's going to be really great in a very like thin, exposed kind of texture.
All right. So basic questions about
Yes.
this instrument.
Okay.
Ranges. So what's the lowest note?
Okay, so it's lowest note will be our C, so written middle C.
Okay, written middle C.
Yeah.
Sounding.
So sounding a G below.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's that note. So and we can go high, but the higher you go, the more fragile the sound is.
Okay.
So you start losing a lot.
Okay. Yeah, it
sound,
sounds
the
like
higher
it gets a
you
little
go.
airy,
Yeah.
kind of. All right. So how agile is it to play down in that lower range, that G to C?
It's you know it's pretty agile. I would say it's
Okay.
you know the fingerings get a little tricky down here because you've got, you know, 3 keys to one finger
Okay.
to operate. So any kind of trills or tremolos involving, you know, the low C or low C sharp key are probably going to be a little
Okay.
difficult.
Can you do an
unless-
example of something that we should never write?
Yes. Yes. That
Okay,
trill, C to E flat or C sharp.
What's
E
that?
flat.
That's C to
C sharp to E flat.
C sharp to E flat.
Or D sharp.
Okay.
If it's a note where you can leave the pinky finger down, so like a C sharp to a G, that's going to be a lot easier. Just
Okay.
any trill or tremolo that involves moving
so
that between those
Those
keys.
3 notes are, what are those notes? That's
Low C,
C,
C sharp,
C sharp,
and D sharp.
and D sharp. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. But as far as doing scalar stuff, that's
Yeah.
probably okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
And that you get a really rich sound down in that octave.
All right. So what are some of the differences between playing this instrument versus the standard
The
C
C
flute?
flute. Yeah, well, it requires a larger airstream. So if you would compare it to like playing a Coke bottle, you know, this one has a larger mouth on it, so it's more of a embouchure than a embouchure.
Okay.
So you run out of air much more quickly.
Let's say you're playing a C. How long can you conceivably hold that note at a good mezzo forte? Do it.
Okay, all right. At a good mezzo forte.
Yeah.
Are you timing me?
I'm going to time you. Here we go.
Okay, good. Ready? Probably could have gotten a better breath,
Okay.
but that gives you an
like
idea.
12 seconds or
Yeah.
so, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Good to know. But on the flute, it's probably a little bit longer.
it is.
All
yeah.
right. What about short notes? Are those, how agile can you play short notes? Can you do stuff that's...
Yeah, in terms of articulation or,
yeah,
just fluidity, like
staccato?
you can do it. I mean, it's
But it's not.
not going to be as pointed of
Okay.
an articulation as.
And then I didn't ask what the highest pitch was. for this.
It's I mean, I can technically play up to the high C, 2 octaves above the staff, which would be a G. sounding below.
Okay, so sounding the G right above the treble clef. All right.
Okay.
I think.
You know, I generally am never going to play above like maybe an F above the staff or a G above the staff. So like around. That's even kind of getting out of the register, like depending on what you're going for. But yeah.
But that's like, yeah, it's.
Do you really want to hear that?
That's not like idiomatic.
No,
That's not,
no.
You know, in your wheelhouse.
Exactly.
All right, cool. Let's go to the next one you got here.
Okay.
And now, are these normally when you go to a session, do you bring everything or?
Yeah, if I don't have bass flute on the call, I'll sometimes leave it in the car, but I generally have it within
Yeah, you can
range.
always just got it.
Yeah.
All right, so bass flute.
Okay, bass flute. This is the big mama.
Nice.
Okay.
So
you want to hear some?
Yeah, let's hear some.
Okay. So this is also going to start at my low C. So this is sounding octave below middle C.
Got it. All right, so it's.
So that's like alto, the top register. There's not a lot that you can do with it, but you still have that range.
Lowest is the C below middle C.
Yes.
What was the top note again?
C, 2 octaves above
that.
the staff. No, 3 octaves above that. No, 2 octaves above that. Oh, Lord. So, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, 3.
And do you read treble clef or?
Yes.
It's treble clef. Okay. I guess so. So the dynamic range of this instrument is pretty similar to the alto, and that
it is.
You're not going to get triple forte out of it, really.
No, you're not. I mean, even
color.
even less so than the alto. Yeah.
All right. So it's a pretty unique instrument.
Yes.
How often do you get orchestrators asking for that, or composers asking for the bass flute? Is it a common thing? Is it?
There are composers who just, you know, they love the bass flute and that's their thing, and I'll play it very frequently for those composers.
I see.
But outside of that, it's not terribly common to see a bass flute.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So all right. Cool. That's we've done the C, the alto, the bass, and then the piccolo.
Flying. Yeah.
So.
Okay. So
play something.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to go all the way up because it's, you know, a little bit damaging and nobody here wants to hear it.
Okay.
But this one starts at R low D.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt anybody's ears.
Oh, it's all right. I can't hear anything anyway. So that's the high. Oh, you can go to the high D. I was always wondering about.
The high D. Which high D?
What's the highest note on the piccolo? General, like comfortably, I guess.
Comfortably, we will play every once in a while a high B or C, 2 octaves above.
Okay.
Written 2 octaves above the staff, but it sounds.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
An octave higher.
Oh, all right. You didn't play all the way to the top.
I did not.
Oh, all right.
I really don't want to hurt anybody.
Okay. All right. Don't worry.
I can do it if you want me to, but do you want to hear it?
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Okay.
I'll cover your ear.
Thank you. That's the high C.
Okay. So, in an orchestration, how often are you way up there? Is that a common place to be, or?
In something.
What's the comfortable range? Is I guess what I'm asking.
It all, you know, like completely depends. In something that's very loud and driving and hard and forceful sounding, you know, we'll get punches on those notes.
Okay.
You know, just like a hard, fast, high C to just sort of accentuate a chord, you know, and add something at the very top.
I see.
Lyrical playing up there is just not, it's not happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then as far as dynamic range, probably the same as the rest. It gets
It's very similar, except that the piccolo is just much more piercing in all registers, pretty much.
Okay. Why don't we move on to some questions from? I did a post to see if anyone had any questions for the musicians. So I have some questions here from you guys on Facebook. This is Chris from Richmond, California. So he asks, what are your favorite key signatures to play in, and when tonguing fast repetitions of notes, what are the most playable tempos preferred for, let's say, tonguing 16th notes? So first, are there particular key signatures that are easier to play in or that you prefer?
Yeah, well, for wind instruments, we often start off in band. We learn in band, so we play a lot of B flat and F and flat keys.
Okay, all right.
So that just comes really, really naturally. I have, for whatever reason, a particular affinity for D major. It's not for any reason, I guess. It's just, you become comfortable. You have to become comfortable playing in just about any key. But when it comes to, reading on the spot.
Yeah, I guess that's what he might be asking.
Yeah.
I mean, is there certain keys you want to try to stay away from? No, F sharp major.
Writing in C sharp major just doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. But write it in D flat and it's okay?
I feel that way. It's just much easier to read 5 flats,
Okay, and then the second part was, I don't know if that's what are the most playable tempos for tonguing 16th notes? I guess, what's the fastest you could do 16th notes? 160 is a pretty common.
I was going to go for 160.
Okay,
I mean,
sorry.
that's, yeah.
Okay, 160. Yeah, maybe just play some 16th note, like repeated, like double tonguing.
Just repeated notes?
Yeah.
On flute? Sorry.
Yeah, flute.
Okay,
I guess.
yeah. Do you want to give me a tempo? Do you want to see if I can do 160? No, I'm kidding.
When you're doing these double tonguing, is that a difficult thing to do? Is it
It depends, and repeated notes like that, it's much simpler. If it's something that's really moving, like, obviously you're going to have a little bit less. It's going to be less fluid.
Okay.
When you're staying on one note, or 2 tongue strokes per note, or more, is a little bit easier, a little bit more doable than just flying all over the instrument.
Cool.
But it's
that's good to know, because I know that's an interesting example of where, if we're all playing and putting parts in, playing on the piano, we're not going to go like this by default. We're going to just play stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll just go, oh, it must be easy because I can play it,
Yeah.
But
I hadn't thought about that.
Or just play a scale with staccato notes. That's not,
It is something that we all learn how to do.
But it's just something to be aware of if you're writing. Okay.
It's definitely simpler with repetition.
Let's talk about the scoring stage scenario. Mm-hmm. So you show up and it's you and maybe 2 other flute players. How do you guys decide who's going to play first flute and who's going to play second flute? Is it kind of is there like a
rock paper scissors? No.
Yeah.
I guess it's usually part of your call. Usually you're told as part of your call you're playing principal or you're playing second. If it's not designated, it's usually we have a pretty good idea based on who has the most years of experience playing. It's everybody kind of knows their place.
I see.
But it's always really good to know before you go in and avoid sticky situations.
All right, and then say an orchestrator then writes a soloistic line that needs to cut through.
Yes.
Who should normally play that? I mean, I assume anybody, or.
Yeah, I mean, most often the solos are going to be in the principal part, but you do see, it also depends on if people are doubling instruments. If second flute is doubling alto or third flute is doubling piccolo or something like that, and you'll have solo lines in those instruments. But you do also sometimes get a second flute solo.
Okay. You just mentioned third flute plays piccolo.
Well, it's always different.
Always
just
different.
as an
All
example.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What are some of the unique challenges to the flute that we should be aware of?
I think probably the biggest challenge on flute is breathing and air management. Like I referenced the Coke bottle earlier. You know, when you blow across a Coke bottle, you're going to naturally run out of air very quickly, whereas the reed instruments, they have something to blow against. Mm-hmm. So their air comes out, they run out of air more slowly.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
So really long phrases without any chance to breathe, or just repetitive motives that never stop.
Okay.
If they're in the forefront of the texture, you know, you're going to get a much more solid performance and more even tone throughout if there are regular places to breathe.
So say there's a part, and we do have a lot of ostinatos that repeat a lot. Is there any way to make it easier for you?
Yeah, I mean, we naturally have coping techniques. We've developed techniques to deal with it. So sometimes we'll just drop a note. But if you know, sometimes that's all it takes. If you just leave one note out, that's enough place
just to get a
to
chance
breathe.
to just breathe once in a while. Okay.
Yeah, and we can kind of find places to sneak them in.
And I'm kind of curious too, is like as far as like say if you're playing with another flute player, how dovetailing, like is there a standard practice for that? Do you guys kind of figure it out as you go, or do we need to figure it out? Like, can we just write, you know, 2 flutes and just write, you know, 400 bars of ostinatos? Do you guys ever, you know?
You can, and we will figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think it's always, for me, I like knowing where you would, you know, prefer for me to breathe. You know, like if you had your pick, these would be the places that I would breathe, you know, and it just cuts down on the time that we have to spend. We stagger breathe. If we have something in unison, like 2 flutes playing one thing in unison, and it goes and goes and goes and goes, then we just make sure we're not breathing at the same time. And that's something that we don't necessarily have to write in. We just figure it out as we go.
Just figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I think that's good. Is there anything else we should, that maybe isn't in the orchestration books that's kind of like, I don't know, off the top of your head, I'm putting you on the spot.
Off the top of my head. That you should avoid or that you should do?
That we should do. Let's be. That you don't see enough of, or.
We don't see enough of. Honestly, I really like playing the lower flutes. You know, we play a lot of C flute, we play a lot of piccolo, and I do think that the alto and the bass have very distinctive voices that are different, and they're beautiful instruments to play. So.
All right, good to know.
More alto and bass.
All right, cool. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this little video series thing. So I guess that's the end of our episode. Thanks for watching, and please tune in for the next one. Bye-bye.